We saw the highest scoring fixture in the Premier League this season, and it was nothing short of entertaining. Let's take a look at what exactly transpired from a tactical perspective. United being the red and Bournemouth being the blue, in order for us to understand exactly how both teams managed to score 4 goals each, we need to look at how both teams approached the game from a tactical perspective. Starting with United approached the game in their regular 3-4-3 shape. We then began to see them look to build up in a back 3 to shape, but then we would see Bournemouth occasionally pressing high up, in an attempt to destabilize United's build-up prowess. However, United were able to well adapt to this quite early, and we then began to see them play long balls or through balls upfield. These passes would be an attempt at catching Bournemouth out looking to exploit the space in behind, especially down the right-hand side where United would look to keep Iraola upfield for the most part, playing as a winger. This would allow Bryan Mbeumo to drift infield and attack central space. Adrian Truffett, the Bournemouth left full-back, would overlap in this game, looking to create offensive overloads down the left-hand side. This is why United looked to exploit this space, as either one of two things would happen. Either the Bournemouth defensive shape would pull to one side of the pitch, opening up space on the opposite side, or they would open up central spaces between themselves, allowing United players to find space between the Bournemouth defenders and look to attack. We would consistently see Iraola and Bryan Mbeumo finding space in this area of the pitch. United upfield would overlap both wing-back, so we did see Diogo Dalot overlapping on the far side of the pitch. This made it incredibly difficult for Bournemouth to well execute their rest defense, as they would have to manage the central space, as well as the wide areas. As a result, we would see large open spaces in the center of the pitch and out wide, because Bournemouth would have some players looking to zonal mark, whilst other would look to man mark, further opening up spaces for United to attack, as they would be able to move the ball quite effectively in this game. The same form of defensive calamity was evident with United, as they would also fall victim to Bournemouth the same way Bournemouth fell victim to them. Let's take a moment to understand how this happened for United, as this was the main reason both teams scored 4 goals in this game. Bournemouth looked to execute a 4-3-1 formation in this game, and the way they looked to attack United was as follows. They would look to build up in a back 2-4 shape, but United would intensity press Bournemouth, which would oftentimes force errors from the team. So we did then begin to see the club play incisive passes out wide or go long. Upfield, we would then see Antonio Semenyo and Alex Jimenez change positions constantly in this game. The idea was to look to destabilize United's defensive shape by looking to pull their players into different areas of the pitch. This was a precaution as the United defense looked to man mark. As stated, Adrian Truffett would overlap. He would oftentimes interchange with whichever wide player Bournemouth had in that specific situation. Bournemouth would be able to well find space in between the United defensive shape. This was a result of United using the same defensive approach as Bournemouth. We would see some of the United defensive look to man mark, whilst others would look to zonal mark. The difference, however, was in the fact that United would overlap both wing-back. This meant that when faced with a high turnover, there would be an obligation for the United centre-backs to cover both spaces out wide. Unlike Bournemouth, as they would mainly overlap one full-back at times, this meant that United were more prone to opening up gaps between their defensive shape than Bournemouth. And this is exactly how Bournemouth were able to score 2 goals from. Therefore, Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes would also look to press high up, meaning United did indeed have less cover when they had to defend transitions. Even when they did have enough cover, they would then lack the defensive mobility needed to well close off the Bournemouth attack. Basically, both teams were defending the same way and attacked in a similar fashion, which is why the score is exactly the same number of goals. These two clubs were almost identical in the way they defended. As a result, this led to both of them leaving large open spaces in the center of the pitch, meaning this game was close to a basketball game, hence the score line. But untimely, this was an entertaining game of football. Final score: Manchester United 4, Bournemouth 4.